La obsolescencia programada no solo afectó a ingenieros. La frustración de los consumidores se hizo eco en el clásico teatral de Arthur Miller, Muerte de un viajante. Como Willy Lomax, los consumidores solo podían quejarse.
Once in my life, I'd like to own something outright before it's broken. I'm always in a race with the junkyard. Just finished paying for the car and it's on its last legs. The refrigerator consumes belts like a crazy maniac. They time those things. They time them, so when you finally paid for them, they're used up.
Los consumidores no sabían que al otro lado del telón de acero, en los países del bloque del Este, había una economía entera sin obsolescencia programada. La economía comunista no se basaba en el libre mercado, sino que estaba planificada por el Estado. Era poco eficiente y sufría una falta de recursos crónica. En ese sistema, la obsolescencia programada no tenía ningún sentido. En la antigua Alemania del Este, la economía comunista más eficiente, las normas estipulaban que las neveras y las lavadoras debían funcionar durante 25 años.
Hier, dieser DDR-Kühlschrank, den habe ich 1985 gekauft. Der ist also mindestens 24 Jahre alt. Und die Glühbirne ist ebenso alt, habe ich noch nie ausgewechselt. Die ist also auch schon fast 25 Jahre alt.
En 1981, una fábrica de Berlín Este empezó a producir una bombilla de larga duración. La presentaron en una feria internacional en busca de compradores occidentales.
Als die ostdeutschen Glühlampenhersteller 1981 diese Langlebensdauerglühlampen auf der Hannoveraner Messe präsentierten, meinten ihre Westkollegen, ihr wollt euch wohl alle arbeitslos machen. Woraufhin die NAVA-Leute, Ingenieure, antworteten, nein, im Gegenteil, indem wir Ressourcen schonen und den Wolfram nicht verpulvern, behalten wir gerade unsere Arbeitsplätze.
Los occidentales rechazaron la bombilla. En 1989 cayó el muro de Berlín. La fábrica cerró y la bombilla de larga duración dejó de producirse. Ahora solo se puede ver en exposiciones y museos. Veinte años después de la caída del muro de Berlín, el consumismo desenfrenado se da tanto en el este como en el oeste. Con una diferencia. En la era de Internet, los consumidores están dispuestos a luchar contra la obsolescencia programada.
The first movie we made that really broke through was a movie about the iPod. And I was completely broke. And I'd gotten this iPod, it was like $500, $400. And about 8 months later, 12 months later maybe, the battery died in it. And I called Apple to ask them to replace the battery. And their policy at the time was to tell their customers to buy a new iPod.
You might as well go get a new one.
Apple doesn't offer?
No.
Apple doesn't offer a new battery for the iPod?
No.
It wasn't that the battery died that was annoying, because in my Nokia cell phone, the battery dies, you buy a new battery. Even in my Apple laptop, when the battery would die, you replace the battery. But in the iPod, this expensive piece of hardware, when the battery died, you had to replace the entire unit. So it was my brother's idea to make a movie about just that. We went around with a stencil spray painting on every iPod advertisement we saw in town. iPod's unreplaceable battery lasts only 18 months. We put the video on our own little site, iPodsDirtySecret.com. In the first month, 6 weeks, it was at 5-6 million views. And the site went absolutely bananas.
Una abogada de San Francisco, Elizabeth Pritzker, oyó hablar del vídeo y decidió demandar a Apple por el tema de la batería del iPod. Medio siglo después del caso del cártel, la obsolescencia programada llegaba de nuevo a los tribunales.
When we brought this litigation, this was 2 years after the iPod was introduced, Apple had sold about 3 million iPods nationwide in the United States.
Buena parte de esos iPods tenían problemas con la batería y sus propietarios estaban dispuestos a ir a los tribunales. Uno de ellos era Andrew Westley.
We selected from amongst the consumers who had called us individuals who would serve as representatives in a class action. A class action is really a device that's fairly unique to the United States, where a small group of people stands in the shoes of a large group to bring one claim before a court.
My role in that case was as class representative on behalf of thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people. The case came to be known as Westley versus Apple. When my friends and family learned that this was a major case, they thought I was, becoming a radical. Here I am going to sue, I was the next Aaron Brockovich.
En diciembre de 2003, Elizabeth Pritzker presentó la querella ante el Tribunal del Condado de San Mateo, a un tiro de piedra de la sede central de Apple.
We asked Apple for a number of technical documents regarding the battery life in the iPod, and we received a lot of technical data about the battery design, about the testing of the battery, and learned through that discovery that the type of the lithium battery that was contained within this iPod was designed by design to really only have a short period of life. I do think that Apple's development of the iPod was intended to be one of planned obsolescence.
Después de meses de tensión, las dos partes llegaron a un acuerdo. Apple creó un servicio de recambio y prolongó la garantía a 2 años. Los querellantes recibieron una compensación.
One thing that really bothers me personally is that Apple really promotes itself as a young, hip, forward-thinking company, and for a company like that not to have a good environmental policy that allows consumers to return products for proper recycling and disposal is really counterintuitive and counter to their message.
La obsolescencia programada provoca un flujo constante de residuos que acaban en países del tercer mundo como Ghana, en África.
It's been between 8 and 9 years now when I noticed that loads and loads of containers were coming to this country with electronic waste. We're talking about end-of-life computers, end-of-life television sets, which nobody wants in the developed countries.
Un tratado internacional prohíbe enviar residuos electrónicos al tercer mundo. Pero los mercaderes usan un simple truco: declararlos productos de segunda mano. Más del 80% de los residuos electrónicos que llegan a Ghana no se pueden reparar y acaban abandonados en vertederos por todo el país.
We are at the dump site here in Agbogloshi. In the past, we had this beautiful river called the Odor River, that meandered its way through this area. It was teeming in the past. It had so much fish. So we actually attended a school not very far away from here. So we'd come play football and hang around the river. The fishermen would organize boat rides, I remember very well. But now it's all finished, it's all gone. And that makes me really, really sad. And it makes me angry.
Hoy en día, aquí no hay niños jugando después de clase. En su lugar, jóvenes de familias pobres vienen a buscar chatarra. Queman la funda de plástico de los cables para obtener el metal que llevan dentro. Los niños más pequeños rebuscan en los restos para encontrar cualquier pequeño trozo de metal que los mayores hayan olvidado.
of those behind the shipment have said that, well, we're trying to bridge the digital divide between Europe, America, and then the rest of Africa and Ghana, of course. But the reality is that these computers that are sent here simply do not work. There's no point in receiving electronic waste when you cannot deal with it, more so when you did not produce it and your country is being used as the world's trash bin.
The trash that for so long in the industrial age has been hidden from view is now coming into our lives and we can actually no longer easily avoid it. The waste economy is reaching its last legs because they don't physically have anywhere else to put the waste.
I think in the course of time, we've come to realize that the planet that we're living on cannot sustain that forever.